Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and this is the Goffstown Conservation Commission. And could I please have roll call?
Patty Gale, staff.
Jean Walker.
Karen McRae.
Evelyn Miller, Vice Chair.
Kim Ricard.
Nick Campesano.
Okay, and it looks like we have enough of a quorum to get started. So here we go. On our agenda, we have, so you're saying this Blackbriar, the people that are supposed to be representing that, are they here?
No.
All right, we're going to go on to the second one then. The discussion with regards to Fournier property, landscaping business site plan on Patty Hill Road. Do we have a representative from that here?
Yes.
You do, okay. Now, Peter, are you the one that's speaking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is just a real quick background. This has been to this is a request for a landscaping business, and it's going to, could you give us a real quick background? And it's been to the planning board and then back here with revisions, and we are back here for what reason now? So could you give me a quick...
I can't address where you've been, or where
No.
they have been,
Okay,
because I was not party to that.
okay.
I can tell you what I have done.
Well, before you do that, I'd like to have somebody here on that, just so that we can bring the public up as to what's going on. So, this, would you mind doing that, Patty?
No, he's still before planning. There was concerns with the chloride and sodium, so we had asked him to come back in to review that. It was there back here. We were waiting for New Hampshire DES's determination on a possible wetlands violation. You got the letter today. It just came in the mail today. So that has been handed out. And then the other item that you wanted to review was the monitoring guidelines for how they're going to make sure that there's no more contamination and testing for it. And I believe that's what Peter Schauer has prepared and he's going to go over.
So this is a site that is going to a landscaping business, and you're going to have sheds that are going to contain different kinds of things, salt and other whatever. And the concern is with the salt right now. And
That's
Peter,
correct.
that's what you're doing your report on.
That's correct.
Okay, and you are a wetland scientist.
Yes, I am. And a soil scientist.
Okay.
That matters in this case. What the Conservation Commission, or we agreed with the Conservation Commission at the last meeting that we would come forward with a salt monitoring program that Mr. Fournier could abide by and give the Commission and the Planning Board some comfort level that we were not flushing salt out of the salt shed onto the adjacent property. It's been a heated, contentious process that we've been through. There have been elevated levels of sodium and chloride in the wetlands, off-site, not in the water samples that we've tested, but in the soil.
Okay.
And so what we have agreed to and I'm not sure whether this was clear last time, but I've come up with a sodium/chloride monitoring guideline. And do you have a copy of that in your package?
And I guess the only thing, when you say we have agreed to, this does not mean you and the planning board? Does it
No.
mean you and the developer? Or,
In the development.
okay, all right,
Correct.
thank you.
That's right. You haven't agreed to anything.
No, I just wanted to make sure who's agreeing with what.
Your second set of plans are the revised plans that planning will be getting. So
Okay.
They're underneath the first one.
Okay. Yep.
And what I have done is gone and I've taken those plans that were generated by the engineer and looked at the outfall locations from the sediment treatment ponds. And there are 4 treatment ponds along the top of the slope. And these are outlet channels, rock channels that outlet from the detention pond. At each location on the detention pond, at the outlet location, near the property line, we're going to sample water when it runs out of the sediment ponds. And at the pipe that goes underneath the entire development, there's an inlet and an outlet. We're going to sample at those 2 locations. there's a small 4-inch HDPE pipe that runs underneath the parking lot here that exists right now, and we're gonna sample at the end of that pipe. So there are 7 locations where we're gonna have water samples taken in the spring of the year, each year for 3 years. And we'll have those analyzed at a certified analytical laboratory. In fact, the samples will be taken by a certified analytical person, so there's no controversy about how the protocol that's followed. And now these will be water samples, and they will be tested for sodium and chloride, both elements. And the results will be forwarded within 1 month of taking the sample to the Goffstown Planning Department or any other regulatory or advisory committee that you have that you would rather see them go to. Maybe the Conservation Commission. I didn't know it, so I just put the Planning Department. I figured they'd get them to the right source. Basically, this guideline says there's an enforcement clause in it that says in the event that the analytical results exceed the maximum contaminant levels for sodium and chloride guidelines set by the New Hampshire DES for drinking water samples, and that's 250 milligrams per liter, the Fournier Family Revocable Trust will be required to temporarily cease use of the salt shed and initiate additional monitoring. That's only if the samples exceed the maximum contaminant levels established by the state for the drinking water standards.
Okay. Those are standards set by the state.
That's correct. Now, the reason we're not doing soil sampling is because there are no standards. So it's very difficult to say that there's a problem. I mean, as you can see, I don't think you were here, but we both took the same sample. A butter, and our person took the same sample. The difference was like 4-fold. So in soils you can get those type of variabilities, and soil levels for sodium and chloride can be very, very high and not be a public nuisance anyway because it's not a toxic element. So I figured that we'd just keep to the water samples. And that's basically it. We'll do it once a year for 3 years. And if there's not a problem after 3 years, I don't think we're going to have a problem, to tell you the truth. Once we get the site has become flushed, and the new salt shed is up and running, if in 3 years we don't have a problem with the way it's being managed, I think it's probably safe to say that we're not going to have a problem.
Well, okay. Any other presentation?
No.
Okay.
I'm done.
I did have questions.
Okay.
And then everybody can chime in afterwards. So what is the construction of the new shed that's, you said, because,
What is the construction?
well, okay, I just wanted to know, yes, what's the construction and,
You should have plans in your package.
They are underneath,
It's in the small packet.
oh,
but you also should have
Yeah.
the big packet,
What, explain it?
I mean, the big plan.
in other words,
The concrete structure
Second to last page.
Concrete slab.
has concrete walls up to, what, 3?
This foot, it's 4 foot, so it's 4 foot in the ground, 4 foot out. And I also had Mitch Lock at DES review it. And
okay, so DES has reviewed this and
He emailed me.
approved of the constructed
He
site.
emailed me back that it was best management practice. He said the only thing that he couldn't say was as far as grades and stuff around it. I don't know, where you're setting this exactly, so obviously, but
And you'll probably be dealing with them about that too, I would think, even though, so you're saying the structure has been approved, but you still have to deal with grades and maybe drainage around that, and that's all, which
That'll be
frankly,
planning board.
I was gonna say, that would be one of our recommendations, to go to planning board, that even though your structures have been approved, we would, I think, recommend that also that all that drainage and your site where it's located should be approved by DES too.
Yes, that has been incorporated into the stormwater management plan by the engineer, where
Okay.
that drainage is going to be going.
Okay.
I just wanna clarify something so there's no fault, nothing false. He overlooked it and stuff and said that it was adequate with best management practice. But in his email, he said that as a rule, the state does not
Aye.
deal with any, basically, private salt sheds. So I just wanna
Okay.
make that clear that
What you're saying is there isn't a standard that you need to be met by
Held to.
law
Oh,
of
I
the
was
state. The
following-
state is helping you out, or
Yes.
helping our town out,
Yes.
but it's not required by.
What we did is, when we did the, actual design, I sent the, he had a best management practice sheet. I sent that up, I sent that up
We have a copy of
to my architect. He went through it and made sure everything on those guidelines met with the plan you're seeing in front of you, so.
Well, that we appreciate.
Yes, there's concrete pads outside where the trucks load, that drain a certain direction. There's a roof over the top of it that keep water out.
Well,
All kinds of stuff built into it.
and I hope you can appreciate the fact that your butters, I'm sure, are very concerned about this, and it's better to have everything out in the open than to think of this later on. All right, so who, Peter, is it that determines 3 years is enough?
That's just the number that I threw out.
You just threw out. So that's a questionable number on our part, whether you think that 3 years is enough to monitor. And then I guess my other thought was, you're saying they're going to take samples of the water and then within a month it is to then get to, the results is to come to either the planning board or conservation or who knows what. I guess my thought is, if you got a bad sample, I would certainly want to know about it. If I were in a butter, I'd want to know about it right away so that something could be taken care of rather than to wait for a whole month to hear the results.
When it's after the season is all over, the salt season's all over, the salt shed is not being used at that time. That's when we're gonna take the samples, after snow melt.
All right, but then you're saying you're giving lag time from when
There's
you
a
get
lag
your.
time at the laboratory to
At the
analyze
laboratory.
the samples. yeah.
Okay, it's not that you're holding the
month.
results and then passing them out. As soon as you get your results,
We'll
then you,
put them in as soon
okay.
as we get them, but it
Practically
takes,
speaking, we only meet once a month.
takes about a month to
this-
get them.
Probably a variable
This
thing, and you said a
Commission can
month
only
is a
review it
I don't
when
know.
reasonable.
I know,
buffer,
not,
not
yeah, I
knowing
know,
what
I
it
think,
It could be 2 weeks.
right.
It's just that the lab takes, depends on the lab's ability to get the product
Yeah,
out.
it took a solid 3
It-
weeks.
It may be practical that we only meet once a month, but I think if the levels were high, that there would be somebody in town that would wanna see that pretty quickly, though. Anyway, okay, so, those were my questions and concerns, and again, maybe the 3 years was also another. I didn't know if you felt that was adequate or not.
That was one of my concerns. Why only 3 years? I expected the 4-year business to last forever. It's a very good, strong business here in town, so I expect it to be around for a long time. So for me, 3 years, especially when it's salt, which deteriorates even if it's made out of cement, I would recommend more, or 3 years, and after that, maybe once every other year, but just stop at 3 years. I have a problem with that. So if we say, okay, we have a good sample in 3 years, consideration either continue it longer or say he's had a good sample, then every other year in that March or April that it's checked again. And then you'd have a better standard on that. I would like to a copy, my comment is planning and CC a copy to us and conservation for the results on that, and we can keep a record of that too. My other question is, if it does come back abnormal, do we begin then let's say we do 3 years and then every other year is what the agreement is, and then all of a sudden it does come back abnormal, I would like to start it and it's all fixed, we get a good reading, that it starts back at the 3 years and then every other year again. Until again, we get a good reading.
I see what you're saying. You're saying if there is a problem, then you want to
Go back
rectify, well,
and then start all over again at every 3 years.
in terms of monitoring it for a
Correct.
few more years to make
Yep.
sure that it's okay.
And then every other year after that, to a certain time frame. I don't want to be too unreasonable.
Maybe
Sure.
just put a clause in there that says after 3 years, we come back to the Conservation Commission and review our procedures with you. It's difficult to write every other year and then for how long? For
Well,
eternity?
I'm not, and that's something I wanted to bring up, I'm not sure, but for me, 3 years is like, especially salt, you look at what salt water does to the ocean, to the cement piers, and after time, it's gonna, yes,
If you look in those plans, all the concrete in that is gonna be sealed. We're using sealers throughout the whole thing, it's all gonna be sealed for that reason, due to the salt. There
So-
will be a special sealant that, I could be wrong, but it's like DOT uses it in all their bins, our own towns, a lot of that's all concrete, same thing, they use sealers. And
So that it's not
protects-
eroding
that
away
will
in there.
protect us.
So
But it
within,
does.
Just so you know.
okay, I appreciate that, thank you, I'm glad you brought that
but
up.
we have, here's another, yes, Karen,
It does. Salt,
corrodes.
and look at our bridges with the rebar coming up. So to say 3 years, if nothing happens in 3 years, is a fallacy. Because it may be in the 5th year that you have a catastrophic failure.
So the question is,
I think there should be an ongoing program of checking.
and so do you feel,
Yearly for the first 3 years, 5th year, 7th, 9th, and if there's any failure in 5, 7, or 9, then it goes back to every year.
until it's rectified? Or you're just saying,
Oh,
or you
no,
come
it
back to
go-
conservation? Or-
Right, but if there is a failure, let's say in 7, then it starts on yearly monitoring.
For another 3 years,
Years.
just like.
That's right, and then the process starts all over again.
I'm just wondering if maybe we can find a middle ground there, because we don't require this of any other landscaper, and there are multiple other
But is it-
industries and businesses that have salt. I'm
Yeah,
not
and
saying
that's
that
why-
it's the same
yeah.
as this,
Mhm.
but I guess maybe if you set up a calendar of some period of time, but then, I think as a suggestion, have it come back to this board. If all of the levels have been dropping, at some point, I think we should be able to say, okay, the best practices are good, the buildings being, and even if it requires at the end of that 5 years or 3 years, a site walk again to inspect the structure to make sure that it's being maintained properly. But I think to just say ad infinitum, you're constantly taking inspections and samples.
OSHA does it.
Well, I appreciate those comments and understand exactly what you're saying, but just a couple caveats to that. One is that, most likely it would perform best when it's new. And concrete
Absolutely.
deteriorates over time, so I think that's one of the things they're trying to get at. And the other is, you said if it declines, but there are no starting water sample values, so there's nothing to decline from.
We do have a sample.
Well, those
I
are
would
soil
assume-
samples,
Okay.
and these are water samples, and,
But wouldn't we have some kind of a curve of where those levels are over the 3 years
well, the
or 5
interesting
years
thing,
or
I
whatever?
think, to look at would be to see if the same pattern appears in those first 3 years. So,
Hmm.
even though, we've had plenty of discussion about how the soil data isn't conclusive, how there aren't firm standards, the interesting thing about that was both sets of data showed the same pattern, the same gradient. If the water samples show the same gradient, then you might wonder about that. If the water samples come back and there is no gradient, then, that's much stronger. So, of all the proposals I've heard, I think the one that makes the most sense is, after 3 years, come back and review how it's gone, and then make a decision, because then we would be talking about real numbers and real data, rather than speculating today what it's gonna be in 3 years.
Okay, so David, so what you're saying is 3 years of testing, bring the results back before the board so that we can look at all of this and then make another.
Yeah, it was a suggestion Mr. Schauer made a few minutes ago, that, why not do this as the
May
plan
have
is
to make
laid
some
out, and then,
corrections on our sampling points, or,
Mhm.
I don't know.
and then let's look at it 3 years from now and see how it's gone. I think that makes a lot of sense.
But still get the yearly tests for the 3 years, and then have them
Right,
come
the
back
plan,
in.
the plan
Okay.
as outlined, and
That
then
makes
at the end of the 3-year period, come back and we'll all review it, and You know, if there's absolutely no gradient, no pattern whatsoever, you know, that's one result. If there's still a gradient, that's another result, and, or whatever. But we would be looking at real numbers and not just speculating on what it might be in 3 years.
Who's going to notify the establishment that your 3 years are up and you must come in for,
You know, that's always the tricky part.
and that's what my concern is, it slips between the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, you have to maintain gravel floors. If you've got oil and things on it, you scrub them down, you reseal them on a periodic basis. And if there's always salt in the shed, how do you maintain the concrete pad? I mean, the salt shed on Tibbetts Hill Road, I never see it being maintained, but I know that he does maintain it, but it's not a concrete pad. It's some kind of impermeable barrier or something like that.
Like a polyurethane, or, I mean, not polyurethane, but a PVC or something, or does that?
I don't know what it is, but I know that it's there underneath the salt, and that gets rolled up and taken care of, and, I mean, it's well maintained, it has to be. But the concrete, unless you scoop out everything out of the shed, and reseal it,
I think it's pretty easy to monitor the date that we come back. It could be 3 years from the date of completion of the salt shed. It's be incumbent upon the client to come back.
And you could be put in the conditions of the approval, must come back before with the monitoring. You can ask that to be a recommendation. You can recommend that the planner were to put it as a condition to have them come back in before to see how the monitoring plan is working.
So, let's say at the end of 3 years of monitoring, we come back to the commission to discuss the results. Right, it's incumbent upon us to come back then.
Okay.
And if we don't, we're in violation.
Well, except I think we'll be sending you a notice, I think, at that point, too, that we're gonna, I mean, that's, or,
I'm just throwing out ideas.
Yeah, we would if you didn't come back in, but I'll give an example. Hebert's has to submit a report every 3 years to us about the groundwater around there, and they do it faithfully every 3 years. It's like, oh, here's that report again.
So does the planning department have any kind of scheduling software or calendar software that tracks things like that, or is it just?
Yeah, it could be go right in to come up in like 2013. Oh, we gotta get that, have them back in.
there should
Right in
be
your
a
calendar.
pre-test. When the salt shed goes in, before a crystal of salt is put in it, there should be a test in the surrounding area. So you set your background level.
We already have-
And after the soil is all disturbed around the salt shed and digging up to the lower level of, if it's going down 4 feet,
I think it's what
you need a pre-test and then a post-test after the salt is in the shed that first winter. I really think you've got to set a
Baseline.
baseline, and these tests don't set that baseline because when you stir up the soil, it's going to read something different.
But are we testing, I got the impression you're talking about testing the water that is going to be going into that detention pond rather than the soil. We're not dealing with soil anymore now.
No, but if you've dug down 4 feet, well, maybe not last month, but I bet you today, if you dig down 4 feet, you're going to have water.
Okay, but I don't think that's what we're testing, though. See, Karen, you're testing, water is sheeting over this site,
Right.
and their concern is that the water that is coming off this site and collecting into the detention pond that will then go into the water that's coming across, not what's down 4 feet in the ground, but what's coming off of the shed and around the shed.
But I think, if I may, I think what Karen is trying to say is, in other words, once all the site work is done, before we're ready to resume and start operation, that we take baseline water samples from the 7 locations that are gonna be used from this point forward.
That makes
Makes sense.
sense.
The only caveat again there, though, is that what they've proposed is the spring runoff after the season's ended and everything's melting, because presumably the ground's frozen, there's not water running off, salt would be accumulating, the spring thaw comes, then it gets flushed through. So that is in fact probably the ideal time to do this on an annual basis.
Oh,
And-
I'm saying you do it then on an annual basis, but I think you have to know what the water is.
I understand, but how it wouldn't be possible to do the baseline because where it's August.
Right.
If the baseline is based on the spring thaw, there's not gonna be
If-
one until next spring.
Right, but if there's salt, appreciable levels of sodium in that water now,
But there's no spring runoff, there's no large volume of water running off the site at the moment. Test.
well, how about Pumpkin Fest? We usually get some water then. I really think you have to have something.
I completely
say.
understand what you're saying, I'm just not sure whether
I
that's
understand too.
Mr. Fournier.
available.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Fournier.
I just wanna clarify something. I think it might be a misconception. There's no brooks or anything. It's a seasonal, the only time we can actually test water to speak of is in the spring. Like, for example, today it was raining, none of the culverts were running in my backyard, and the small 4-inch pipe, none of this stuff was running. It takes an awful lot of water to be able to test, to be honest with you. So I just wanna clarify that I don't have water running across my property, 365 days a year by any means. It's pretty much right in the spring when everything melts till maybe middle of May. That's about it. I just wanna clarify that, just so we understand that it's the only time I can test water, I guess.
And that's when you did these other tests, was right around, it was April.
We have those baseline.
That confuses me because when we first started talking, you said there was no water baseline, but now you say there is a water
Mr.
baseline.
Mr. Gibson, I think, did the first one in April, when the water was running, and then when we went to, we had to go down in his wetland and dig a hole to get a water sample. That's right. That
Right,
was-
and I believe those first water samples from Mr. Gibson were also contested because those were showing an elevation. That was what prompted
Yep.
and led to the soil samples, so we're starting with a baseline that is elevated then. And I believe I don't remember the numbers, but I believe it was considerably above 250. Yeah,
And that's supposed to be natural? That wasn't due to
no,
salt
that's what
shed?
suggested the whole thing because that was quite high. So if we're using that as the baseline, then
That's too high?
I don't think it matters what the baseline is. If we exceed 250 parts per million in the water sample, we've exceeded the state level.
yeah,
Period.
I
It's
I
just,
think that's a reasonable
It's
I
conclusion.
Where
think
is that?
that,
I would agree with that.
I mean, I would too. I mean, I think you do have, instead of a baseline, it sounds like the baseline is not really what we want to use. We want to use a standard that's set by the state. Well, do I have more comment on this?
I just had one more comment, but I just wanted to throw it out there. Is it something we need to even mention? Because when I read enforcement, if it does come back elevated higher than 250 milligrams per milliliter or liter, required temporary cease use of the salt shed. It'll be monitored. It'll be possible remediation. But then it doesn't say who then tells them they can resume their operation again. Who then gives them the blessing, your remediation is done and you can now resume. It doesn't really specify that. Is it the town? It says it will be, and recommendation repairs, if any, will be scheduled and completed. So if we tell them to do a temporary cease, the town does, who then tells them that it's okay to start up again?
I think
That's
that-
my only, I didn't know if that was an issue that needs to be put in there or not.
I think typically you have, and working with the planning board, whether you wanted to have conservation look at it, or you want to have the town engineer look at it, or the planning board, but I think typically it might be the town engineer.
Because I didn't know if it needed to be in there, if this is like the document guideline, if that, if we need to be nitpicking, does that need to be put in there?
I think that would be a recommendation that we'd want to pass on to the planning
Okay.
board, that we do want to say specifically what the, you know, if there was, there is a default, then how it should be taken care of, and, or not, not saying how it is to be taken care of, but
Right.
that we do want it taken care of, and that it then would, are we saying, Peter is suggesting that they come back at the end of 3 years with each year's study. Now, we're gonna get each year's result. And then at the end of 3 years, we'd like you to come back to conservation, and there will be discussion as to if this meets the state standard and does everything look okay. And then I think that we're discussing a pass off on that. If it doesn't, then we're talking about rectifying the problem. And I think that would be at that time, there would be discussion as to whether you wanted to have another 3 years of testing. And then who is to sign off on, say, they rectified the problem, and that would be with, do you have a suggestion? Planning board, town engineer,
Yeah, I mean, basically this paragraph about enforcement, it just doesn't say who is the
That's-
enforcing.
That's what
Authority.
should it be, is it necessary that we need, if this is gonna be the document, we put that in, specify who? The town,
Megan's the town engineer. I mean, I don't know if that's,
I would think.
I mean, or, I don't know if it would be Derek, that if this is.
No, I think we should have think we should have a town engineer looking at that. I think, you know, in consultation with the Conservation Commission, we'll look at the results, and then I think, the town engineer would be one to go over.
That was the only other question I had on this.
I have a question. What will be going into the mulch pile?
Mr. Fournier.
What will be going into the mulch pile?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be just a pile of bark mulch.
I thought that's where the stone storage bins are. It's gonna just be bark mulch?
I don't know I'm not really sure which plan you have.
Next to it says outside storage, loading pan, pad.
To the left of the salt shed would be where the mulch is. I'm not really sure which plan you're looking at, that's all. 'Cause we have to put-
Do you mean what he's storing it on?
To the left,
I
it
think-
says new fuel station. And then the public utility line goes through there, and it says proposed new location, mulch pile, winter snow storage. There's a circle. I'm looking on the second page of the big plan. Sure. The old mulch piles were in the setback. It's this, okay.
The mulch pile, we're just gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, so the mulch piles will be here, the salt shed, and then the stone storage bins are
Wait,
here.
that's not the salt shed.
No, that's a salt shed. And then that's the fuel station, the station's actually there, but that whole pad is the concrete pad is what that is.
Okay, so that moved from this one.
Oh, no, you know why, that's where the existing salt shed is.
Okay, so you're moving the salt shed here.
Up.
Okay,
And part of that is due to the fact of wetlands down here and stuff like that, we're trying to keep it up higher
okay.
and further away.
So this is just stone, and this is just going to be
Bark mulch.
bark mulch.
Yep.
Now, there will be no grass clippings?
No, we dispose of them off-site. No, well, actually, I think in our plan, it's, we're not allowed to process materials or anything. That's
Okay.
part of planning board.
And now, this barn is parking is awfully close to the wetlands. And the wetland setback. Are you gonna move your parking right into it?
No, we're doing the 50-foot buffer.
Yeah, but when you have your loader and your grader and you just
No,
push it back a wee bit,
Well, no, this is all gonna be trees right here. And then this comes right back off, right into the wetlands.
It looks like they built up the land, or the land is.
Yeah, it's all
you-
built up.
There's a tree barrier, yeah, I see it.
Yeah, so it's a tree barrier there, and it looks as though it's sloped, it's built up from the wetland area, so you won't be able to go beyond
Yeah,
that point.
I can't go any further, and that's
Right.
what. These are, we have an actual, a new landscape plan also that shows that this whole corner is nothing but trees, all the way up and then back around.
Well,
I think
these
what-
little dots say bushes.
So I think what Karen would like is maybe if you put some orange fencing up when you go and do your grading, and that way you won't be sure to go
Maybe silt
into that.
fencing, maybe?
Yeah, or just make sure that you have that you'd have a clear,
And then everything will be out of the setback? Is that what I'm reading from this new plan? Or are the parking spaces going into the setback?
The parking spaces will not be in the
They're out of the
setback. The setback is right to the top of the steep slope. You can't park vehicles in the setback because it's too steep. Plus, the trees are gonna be
Okay,
around
here's
the
the
inside of the
25,
buffer with
yep.
We're right on it,
outside
but
of
yeah.
the buffer,
We're out of
so.
it. And the same thing over here, we have a couple over in here too.
and I'm assuming that once they start site work, town engineer goes over and checks on this stuff, don't they?
Are there going to be water and bathroom facilities in the new barn?
No, we have a porta potty on site as of right now, and as of right now.
So there will be no further sanitary expansion of the new barn?
Okay, so when you have this construction going on that you're setting up, then the town engineer typically goes over and reviews your site, what's going on, and approves what's going on.
Yeah,
with
she
this.
walks around with the plan.
Yeah, so, okay. All right, do we have any other questions or wanting to add things? Is it clear have we come up with a consensus that you want this to be at the end of 3 years? They'll be notified by the planning board to come in and have a review of the testing results with the Conservation Commission. And if everything's okay, then we will discuss the sign-off on that. If it's not, if we're not happy with it, then we will have, they will have to rectify the situation, and the town engineer will be the one to go and take a look at that, and that we would like a final consult on that.
I just had one question, though, to do with the drainage. You were first saying that you wanted, it be okay with DES. Do you want it to be to town engineer's satisfaction, like normally as she checks the drainage around? You were talking the drainage way at the beginning, around the salt shed.
Well,
Yeah, that would be a
it
good idea.
makes sense, yeah, yeah. Yes, Karen?
I'd like one more caveat to the planning board. I think this site requires as-built plans.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
It
right.
means that when they finish the salt shed and the barn and all the drainage and everything, they do a new set of plans as it exists on the ground, with the trees in and the drainage and everything, so that,
Isn't that what this would be?
you're
no,
saying-
this is not an as-built. This is a proposed.
So basically maps out what they have done.
Correct.
I don't get it.
What?
I don't
So-
get it,
so-
sorry.
Because I live in a neighborhood with 3 landscapers. And it changes. Actually, there's a 4th, but he's not a
But if
landscaper.
a plan is
But-
approved and engineers are going over and seeing that it's being implemented as approved,
Mhm.
how is that different?
Next year, when we need a little bit more turning room at that barn, and we've got the loader there, we just push back. Just a little bit.
Now, okay. And
Well, that would,
But
Couldn't
the-
that occur even with an as-built? Because that's
But
just a
the-
snapshot in time.
That's right, but at
Exactly.
least you have that snapshot in time that it is finished to what they said they were going to do, so that if anybody complains, you can say, well, here's the as-built.
I guess my comment would be that I would expect that what's on these plans that's approved by the planning board be the as-built. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but what I'm saying is they need to comply with this plan, and if they plan on making any changes, then they would have to go back to planning board to ask for a change. Or I feel the planning board would have recourse to have them stop what they're doing, a cease and desist, and then it has to comply with your plan. Am I incorrect?
No, I mean, I agree with you. If this is what's approved, and
That's what they
it's
have to
being
do.
inspected, then
But
it
some-
is the as-built, because if they don't do what was approved, then
And actually, Karen,
Who's gonna go there and check them?
well, Karen, actually though, we've had other situations, and I understand what you're saying, but we've had other situations where the developer has gone in and cut down trees where he's not supposed to, and then in fact, when we find out with this, he gets into big hot water, and the planning board has consistently gone through and taken away his,
Is what?
well, they take,
Call them back in. An example, there was one on Master Road that paved more than they were supposed to of a parking area. And it was seen and they had to come back in.
so I guess this is giving Mr. Fournier a heads up that if anything does alter from what you've got on the piece of paper, you really have to talk to the planning board before you do anything else. Because I was saying, we also have another place where they did some blasting and they put in something before they were supposed to, another spot that I'm thinking of. And in fact, they were not allowed to use that anymore because they had decided to do some development where it had not been approved, and then, so that was stopped too. Mr. Fournier?
Just as far as the comments, all those areas on the sides and stuff that we're talking about making, they're saying that bigger area and stuff, pushing over the load and stuff. But, I mean, I'm gonna have expensive trees there, the whole side's gonna be all retention pond areas, I mean, there's no place, the size when I'm done is what it's gonna be, and I can understand her concern.
I think her concern is for the abutters, and I do understand.
And I
If
feel
be-
that they would be the first person who would.
I'm sure they'd let, yes, everybody know. Because, and that is a big concern, the runoff that's gonna come off of this, if there's any other alteration in this terrain, if you happen to be getting into the detention areas, then that's going to cause a huge problem for the people that are your abutters and are down below you. I guess, Karen, I understand what you're saying, but I think that this should be the as-built. We're expecting you to do this and not be creative beyond this. This is your, my understanding is that is what you have to stick to, and that you can't be creative with your loader or whatever else, so. And that we feel, I think because you've been brought back a number of times, that the way that this is not just landscape, but that it's the earth, the way that it is built up and with the ponds, it's all really very important in protection of your abutters. But Karen did bring up a point, and I don't want to be the heavy saying that, is there any other discussion on this? And does anybody else have any other feelings about that? So that would be our recommendation, to go back to planning board.
what would be our recommendation?
That it be a yearly testing of the waters, that
The
after
3-year
3
plan
years.
as submitted by Mr. Shower, and come back after the 3 years for review to see how it's gone.
Correct.
Is that a motion?
Could I have a motion? Does anybody want to make that a motion to send?
And then the other thing was that it be indicated who the enforcing agency was. In this
Yeah, I'll
case,
make
we were
that.
going to defer to,
Make
The
the
town
change
engineer.
Patty tomorrow.
And then to have DPW really look at the drainage around the salt shed. That was the other, at
Oh,
the
yes.
beginning you had said you
Right.
wanted.
And I think that we're also, I guess we would like, I think we should put in this, that we expect this to be the final, or what the planning board comes up with, their final plan, that will be the as-built plan, that you are not to be creative and go beyond that or change and do any alterations of that. That would be our recommendation.
Be built in accordance with the plan, the site plan.
Very strictly, and, yeah, because this has been something that's been very, and, you know, with all these detention ponds here and all of the drainage, that this is, I think it's very critical that to get it all to work just right and protect your neighbors, that you really have to stick to the plan. Anything else?
I have one more thing.
Yes, Peter.
Issue of the wetland violation on the site. Did you receive the letter from the state today?
Okay, do you have
It's in your correspondence.
It was handed out.
Waiting for 2 or 3 months for this.
Right here.
I'm sorry. They've received a complaint. Does everybody have it right there? Concluded that the fill area was not considered wetlands and therefore not jurisdictional under the RSA 482. Based on the review, this review has found no conclusive evidence of a violation, determined that no further action is required at this time, and they will close the file. All right, is anybody else?
But they're keeping it.
Rega-
Read that.
They
I'm
always,
sorry.
DES may reopen this file.
Okay,
they say that on every one.
okay. And they're saying it on this one, okay. Okay. Any other comments on this? And we have, can I have, so that was a motion, who made that motion? Me?
I'll make the motion to
Thank you.
include all the recommendations we specified, namely the 3-year plan as submitted, a review by the Conservation Commission after 3 years, the enforcement agency being the town engineer, enforcement agent, and that they also recommend that they look carefully at the drainage around the salt shed as it's being
And that
implemented.
the final site look like identical to what is approved by the planning board. Okay. Do I have a second? Second, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One opposed.
Abstain.
One abstention. I think it has passed then, right? 5,
4 in favor, 1 abstention, 1 opposed.
5.
I don't vote.
You don't vote. Oh, okay.
Unless you have Kelly voting,
Do I count today?
you can, 7, right?
What?
How many, do you normally have 7?
What's quorum?
7.
Well, you can, yeah, just call, because Kim's not here, yeah, you're voting, so 5?
All right.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. And I'm sure you know, Mr. Fournier, that you are going to be watched very carefully.
Very well aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Now we have Black Friday.
Sorry,
I have to find my,
No, we don't, this is
do you have one? Thank you very much.
No, those are, these
There it
plans
is,
all
okay.
belong to planning, so they all come back to me.
All right. Oh,
I
dear,
borrowed
I've just
them.
been writing on it. Well,
That's okay.
No, that's,
my mind
it's
is like a
the
sieve. I have
landscape
to
plan
get
is
things
here and
down
everything.
real. All right.
No,
I think that's them over there
It's-
to the other site.
yeah.
Is this, yeah, this is it. All right. I'd like to, why don't we get our other plans, okay, let's
And
get,
also the Black Friday plans that are underneath our planning stuff.
okay, so I won't write on those. Sorry, Patty. Oh, God. Well,
Sorry, I do not trust.
well, okay, here goes.
Those are more? Just throw them in, that's fine. Yeah, I'll get the rest on the other side after.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is discussion with, is it discussion on the open space subdivision on Montalban Road and Black Brook Road. Blackbriar Woods, is that what it's called? Yes. All right. And for the record, you are,
My name is Eric Mitchell. I'm here for Blackbriar Woods. Keith Martell, who's the applicant here and the owner of one of the parcels. We've been before the commission on several occasions. We've been before the planning board. Our yield plan did get reapproved for 17 lots, and that's what this plan shows. What I wanted to go over with the commission is that there were, at the last meeting as well as the planning board meeting, it was suggested that we show how the houses would be built, where the grading would be, the septic, the well locations, and that. So what this plan shows is the engineering design of the road that was submitted to the town. It shows the crossing that we have for the wetlands, which happens to be about 6,200 square feet for wetland impact. The green line that you see here is a 50-foot setback. The 100-foot setback is the dashed line that you can make out down through the edge. What we have done on the plan for...
I'm really sorry, I hate to, the 100-foot setback is the, could you run your finger through the whole area so I can, thank you.
There's a dashed line right here that is 1 inch away from the green line, which is the 100-foot setback. It comes down through here and goes off. And right here it comes up.
So, and then this very small wetland there, that is not connected and it's doesn't.
It's smaller than 2,000.
Okay. And the 100-foot setback, some of this is a 100-foot setback, because it looks like you're 100-foot and you're, oh no, I see, it goes way, here it is. Okay.
The 100-foot setback goes where the road is down through here.
All right.
These ones don't go back to Patty, so you can probably get permission to color it in.
Okay.
What we've done for the submission to the planning board, and based on what the commission had seen also last time, is the road was actually up this way a little bit further. And the problem with that was the backyards for these first 2 lots in was very small relative to the 100-foot setback. By pulling the road down through here, we've gained additional room for backyards to be worked on there. And the area that we had proposed for detention at the end of the cul-de-sac was in this area right here, which was remote from the road. And we since have taken the house that was going to be through here, moved it back, and put the detention on this side. In addition to that, we've provided a access down along the Toa slope to get to the detention pond, as well as the sediment sump that will be here. And if you look closely, there's a trail that comes down through here which goes through the whole property without going through the wetland. So we provided a couple parallel parking spaces here for the public to park, because this will be open to the public. This way they can park near the entrance, walk down and back. If they want to walk down the road and come down through a trail that goes out to the back the other way, they can do that. But this way, one, gives access to the pond for Public Works by having the trail there, and 2, gives access for the public to park on the side and walk down to get to the land in to the rear. They're not precluded from walking down the road, going out off the cul-de-sac or coming out that way, but it may be a little bit better if the parking is near the front as opposed to down where the houses are, if there's a couple cars there. We are performing a functions and values analysis to have some improvements within the outer 50-foot buffer, and that's the main reason why we colored up the green line for the 50-foot buffer. The only areas that we're working in that are not related to the actual road construction, you'll see on lot number 3, there's a little bit of grading in the hill. This is a hill right here. In lot number 3, we have the grading, so the slope goes up. The same on lot number 4. This is the slope that goes up. In this one area, we're looking to, it would give additional backyard, but there is no runoff from the back of the house that goes down towards the wetland because it's actually higher here. So the backyard will be flat, it'll go up and then back down again. So there's no runoff from the house that would go towards the rear. In addition to that, to get the drainage in through here and the driveways out to the houses in the rear, we are within the 100-foot, the outer 50-foot setback to this isolated wetland. But because that is isolated, our functions and values analysis will be done. But we know that this is has a much less function and value than the bigger wetlands that are out to the rear. In addition to that, we propose to put a ditch down along the 100-foot setback and back to the houses on the low side of the road with a berm. That'd only be like 1.5 to 2 feet deep in a berm. That'll accomplish two things. One, it'll be a physical barrier for any of the houses here, for them to know that that's the buffer. We'll still put signs up because we've agreed to do that. But it also takes any of the water that's coming off the roof and the lawns here and brings it back and gets it back in the detention pond. So one, it's a physical indication as to where the 100-foot buffer is, and two, it gets the water coming off of these lots back over to the detention pond, which we think is important for treatment for that. That is the main part of what we had told the commission we'd be back for. We still have to finish the functions and values analysis and submit that. But the design as we have it, I think, is pretty close to what we're doing. There has been discussions with the disposition of the open space, and I'll let David perhaps talk about that, or Keith can support that.
I have a question.
Yes, Karen.
On lot 10, running right up next to the house, is that part of the detention pond? That grading?
The grading is continuous from the side of the house down to the pond. The detention pond has to be a low enough elevation.
Correct.
Unfortunately, this is a hillside already, so the regrading it will be a constant slope going down into the detention pond.
Further question, will the detention pond then be fenced so that the kid on his tricycle doesn't head right down into the pond?
We can talk to Public Works about that. I think that fencing obviously is important for safety, but there's also a maintenance aspect to it. And the type of fence, if we were to say put a 6-foot chain link fence all around the pond, that would certainly not be very good aesthetically. It would keep people out. But whether or not we would be putting a lower fence, whether it's a picket fence, and something that is a little bit more aesthetic, but we would certainly be willing to talk to Public Works to see what they might recommend.
But that lot for the homeowner is and you've put a very large house compared to some of the others there with 2-car garage. So I'm making a judgment call that it's going to be a family house. And I mean, I think you're creating an attractive nuisance for every child who would live in that house.
The grading that we've shown here is what the possible grading could be. We haven't done the actual design or set the design to do that. The house you see here is a 3-bedroom house with a 1-car garage. The other house shapes are also 3-bedroom houses with garage unders.
Well, it looks like a 2-car garage.
The garage is right here, it's just a single. But your point is well taken, and we can do something to change the grading of the configuration of the house so there's a break and slope. The house doesn't have to go right here. It can be up a little bit further. It can be back a little bit further. So as far as the grading right up to the house, that's something that we can take into account. And whether the Public Works wants us to put some fencing up, we're willing to discuss that with them to do that.
And a further question, on lot 11, how much of the lot is the drainage ditch? Or detention pond? It looks like the whole house is in the grading area.
Oh, wait, did I get this?
The house will be back through here, and the area in the front of the lot is part of is where the detention area is, but the total lot area, probably half is in detention, half is not in detention.
You know, the other thing is, so, for this detention pond to have a long life, that all that slope has to be constantly mowed. It has to be maintained, correct? All the detention ponds that you put in, these are earthen walls, and they have to be mowed. So the town is supposed to come in and mow all of this stuff.
I don't know if that's correct, that they have to be mowed. They certainly have to be stabilized and vegetated. With vegetation, that's either not, you can't plant large trees that are gonna grow up and then fall over and make dig a hole. But with either a conservation mix, wildflower mix, any shrubbery, that can all be put in there without having to make it be mowed. That will actually hold the soil in place.
Oh, it has to be mowed. I mean, the workshops I've taken on detention ponds are they have to be maintained and they have to be mowed. So, I mean, I'm just looking at, so this is it's a big field in a sense that is then into a detention pond, and you're right, it's going to be an attractive. What did they do with the one that's up off of Worthley Hill Road, or what's that road? You know, there's a little development over there, and have they put any kind of fencing or anything around that? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Which one you're talking about?
Tyler Drive?
Tyler Drive, yeah.
Tyler Drive?
That's what
But
you're
it
thinking of.
is it in somebody's backyard? Or is it a front yard, or is it?
It's probably separate. Is that right?
Eric, I have a
I
question.
mean, I do think this is going to be an issue,
The question is who maintains it, for one thing, and who owns it there.
but it is going to have to be maintained. I guess it is an issue in terms of it being on somebody's lot, and whether it is going to be a real either if it's not maintained, then it's going to become non-functional. And if it is maintained, then it's going to be an attractive nuisance for, or could possibly be a hazard, or. But anyway, that's it, yeah. All right.
I'd like to throw something into it.
Go ahead.
To eliminate this whole issue, I've seen randomly different projects that have come across, and these fancy new systems are out there now. Is there any kind of a buried system that could be worked in this certain kind of project? Or a rain garden is another suggestion, using that, making it attractive, doing the same kind of thing. Or I've seen, and I'm not sure, really it's out of my realm of knowledge, but I've seen some projects come where they have these fancy-dancy buried systems, and it would eliminate, just a suggestion to throw out there, that this whole issue. I'm not sure if it's feasible in this project.
As far as rain gardens and those are things that can be done. It doesn't give you a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak, in terms of what we have to do.
Okay.
The problem with this detention area is the bottom has to be where it is. If we were to put in, we can't put chambers up higher and just have it be flat. The chambers, if we store stormwater, have to be down at the bottom of where this is. Now, maybe there's a possibility that we can look into having a chambered system and then filling over the top, 6-8 feet or something like that, and provide whatever air vents or things it may need, just so it doesn't completely get air shut off to it. But that's a possibility, but we could bring this up some, but the actual chambers and things would have to be down near the bottom. But we can take a look at that.
Didn't know if that was something feasible with this project at all. Another thing is snow removal. With the salt, is that going to be taken off-site, or is there an area for that?
But this will be a town road, so whatever the town has for a salt program. I think that would just be worked on that. If there is a no salt area or something in towns or in the vicinity and through here, this could be labeled that would be up to Public Works if they want.
So is this a cul-de-sac that has a center there that is going to be vegetated?
Yes, it will be.
And then, actually, there will have to be some way of removing, because if that, I mean, you're just going to be, if you're going to be plowing that, then you're going to have a lot of sand that is going to be added to that road, and then that potentially can go down into this, drain it into your detention pond area. I mean, they fill up.
Well, if sand was an issue, then a buried one would be even more problematic.
Right.
Eric, it's probably
Yeah.
helpful to point out that we switched to closed drainage rather than just open sheet drainage running that sand into the
And that's what Kiva just mentioned. We do have closed drainage coming down the road with curbing. So we are picking up what we have in the street, in our catch basins going down in. Obviously, if the plow goes around and it throws a windrow off to the edge, that snow pile itself is not contained within the curb. But all the stormwater from the road during any of the storm events stays within the closed system with the curbing.
So then those are, you must, then you're gonna have a regular maintenance, is that,
Yeah,
the developments lately are going to
The town highway
do.
comes out with the
No, but I mean.
sewer sucker
No, I
and
underst-
sucks it out.
And I understand that, but I think, haven't some of these, oh, well, that was, because this is gonna be a town road. Okay, boy, you've got a lot of earth moving here. So you must have a special, this is gonna require a special permit from the state, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Have they even looked at any of this yet? You haven't done any of
Waiting
this?
to get locally to get as much feedback as we can before we give
Before
it
you
to
get
them,
into
but
that.
we're very close to submitting to AOT.
Okay, so let me ask you then, one of these has a little garage, but then the rest of these, it looks like they're just regular little houses, and it looks like you have just a spot for the car to park, but
I said garages were under.
garages are underneath.
The two-car garage unders and room to park in front of the doors and just a place to back out.
And then these yards, 34, are,
Most of those yards on the high side would have a slope that goes up.
right, and your drainage is, and you're gonna have good drainage around these houses so you don't have the water pooling down here in the house?
Right, it'll drain down towards the road. On the high side, the driveway's pitched down towards the road. And on the low side, the driveway's pitch away from the road, but it continues towards the rear of the house.
Okay, then I do have a question about that, and then when you're talking about this berm that's gonna go around the 100-foot, and it's gonna be like a foot and a half, and again, that has to be maintained, so it's gonna have to be mowed. Boy, that's the kind of thing that people love to throw their grass clippings in. I mean, it just, you know,
Get a little bobcat in there and
well, just,
They've
Push
already
it
agreed to
down
put
and
some
have
metal,
the
they've already
garden.
agreed to put metal signs up, too, along there.
Actually, that berm is kind of beyond what we usually see, so
Right.
I kind of like it in that regard.
And if,
well, no, I'm not complaining about it, I'm just,
between the berm and the signage, they will have the signage up to also.
You know, everything is fine with the first people who buy it because they are totally aware of everything. It's explained to them by the realtor and everybody else. But then you get the next person or the next person after that, and then go up on Blackbrook Road next to 597. They have totally obliterated the wetland. Totally.
I'm thinking of some on Tanager that the same thing
And,
has happened.
you know, how do you prove it? It's gone. And it happens, you know, somebody is home for the weekend and you come back the next day and it's there. And that's happening all over town with these wetlands. And so the first people buy it and say, oh, this is great. And the next people say, oh, it's a mosquito breeding ground, I don't
Well, I
want
guess
triple E here.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be that it seems to me there's still a lot of stuff going on in the buffer zone. There's an awful lot of earth moving, and, part of your cul-de-sac is in there. I mean, now you've obviously heard this already. Now, and my question here, you're talking about putting parking down here. Again, to me, it looks like the whole place is gonna be just grass. Is that right? I mean, there's all this earth moving going on, and then the houses are gonna be put in, so I'm assuming it's gonna be like field grass, conservation grass. So that's what's probably proposed here too, the parking area, is it?
Well, that would be paved. It'd just be a pull-off for parallel parking where the parking is. But the slope itself would be, well, let's see.
Were they asking you at some time to put in some kind of landscaping on?
We don't have a specific landscape plan. We know that there's some areas in particular. There's an area down here right after you cross the brook where material and the tree line is here that's come out. That we do plan to revegetate. The trees have been cut.
Already?
No, not for the road. There was, the former owner out here had a cordwood operation. He had cut trees in through here. It's still wooded, but there's a lot of cordwood that's been taken out. So it's fairly thin even in this buffer down through here. So we'd be willing to plant additional trees that we would take up from other parts of the site, just natural trees that are out there, and revegetate in here anyway because it's thin. Nothing's been clear cut with the exception of this area with some fill takeout. And this area where it's cleared is where you actually cut up the cordwood in that. And that's another reason why we chose to put the detention pond and sediment sump down there because the trees were already cut and the grades work for us.
So I'm really sorry, I'm really behind. So then these are all, is this on town water or sewer?
No, individual wells.
Okay, wells, individual wells, and then the sewer system?
Septic system.
Septic system. So is it this little tiny box here?
Yep.
Is that the 4K area?
No, these would be the actual systems, a little rectangle that's beside the houses themselves. There's a little box that may represent a septic tank, and then the long rectangle would be the septic
Is
system.
the field, are these, it's not a large field then,
No.
These are those,
These would be chambers that would be
Chambers.
round chambers. The round chambers that would be, the beds typically might be like 5.5 feet wide, 35 feet long or so.
well then let me ask you, I guess I'm trying to envision somebody living here then. Is there enough place to put in a garden, or,
Swimming pool.
okay, a swimming pool or a swing
Shed.
set or, they look pretty filled up with,
Well, they're small lots because it's a clustered open space division. I
Okay.
mean, you can't expect it to be a large lot. That's the whole point.
And I think that our approach to what has been done here is that we have a large acreage, and I think over 125 acres of open space being left open to the public. In order to be able to do that, putting the housing ends up being in a more compact area. The lot sizes are at least a half acre in size, which is what the zoning requirement is. But the houses are 3-bedroom houses, just as somebody who wants a 4-bedroom house wouldn't come by here. Somebody who sees that they want to have a pool and gazebo and all kinds of additional things, they just won't buy here because there is not the room to do it. On the other hand, that will be reflected in the cost of the house for people to go buy them. These are not going to be valued at what you would see for a 4-bedroom house or perhaps on a 2-acre lot either. So it's somebody making choices.
right.
No different if someone would rather live in a townhouse or an apartment or a single-family house.
Well, and I'm assuming then this will be a nice little family, and the kids will want to play. Do they have sidewalks?
No, but there's only, at that end, there's only 15 houses down that way, which is not a lot of traffic to begin with.
Okay.
Part of our problem is that from a design standpoint, in order to meet AOT requirements, we have to take all water that is coming through the site and not just make sure that it doesn't leave the site any quicker than what it did before, but we have to have a certain amount of infiltration. The more pavement we do, the more sidewalks, the width of pavement, gravel shoulders, the more we do, that water now has to be put someplace, and that's why the pond looks the way it does, because we have to put as much of it back in there again and to infiltrate back into the ground as opposed to just let it be retarded or retained before it goes down the slope. So there's pros and cons to all of it, and we have left less impervious now than what we normally might have, largely because of the alteration of terrain requirements, which are an environmental requirement.
Okay. Karen?
I have a question. So then the acreage, let's say lot 60-4, the house is way up front. Now, does that house own all of that right to the property line?
The way the plan is drawn, they would. They don't have to. We do have open space down in here where the wetland is. Those can be chopped off and still be part of the wetland in through there.
But as you're showing it now, this isn't open space or anything else. It's part of the lot.
On lot 4, yes, that goes down to the back. Lot 3 comes in through here. So this is open space down through here. And we have no issue at all with taking the line behind 3 and just bringing it right straight down through here, so the rear of 4 and 5, the way you see it, will end up being part of the open space. That's not a
Okay,
problem.
and 6 then too goes through that. They go all the way to the property line, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10?
Right.
And
Well, this one I can't figure out where that's, 11 is a big lot then, but with very little building area. Correct?
Yes, it has less buildable area than some of the other lots, but again, we're trying to make a balance between what we can do for density, what we can fit on the area of the lot that we want to build on, and still to leave enough open space and the rest of it. If we were to continue to go further with more wetland impact, that seems to defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do.
Okay, but then on lot 6011, that I don't have much building area, am I paying taxes on that whole parcel?
But and I'm not the assessor, but if there is a detention or something on there, I don't believe the assessment is going to be identical to somebody who has the same amount of lot that's all forested. But it's not going to be a big discount, if you will.
well, the question is that like this other subdivision that's off of Worthley Hill, does it make sense to just have that as a town lot, and maybe access to some of your other open space? Because the town is going to have to cross this person's driveway, or I guess they'll park their truck here, and I know they're going to have to maintain this and mow it. I mean, there's just no way that there's not going to.
Well, wouldn't they come in off the end of the cul-de-sac?
Right, so they're coming in.
We would give them an easement over the driveway so they can get around it, and so they would have that. If for those that were here at the last meeting, we did have the area shown for detention in here, which was actually smaller than this, but that was, even though it was not in any buffers of the wetland buffers, it was considered that was just too remote. We had just had one house out here, and you get to it by the driveway. This house was over here. So taking that into consideration, we moved this up and flopped that back over there. I mean, we're trying to accommodate what all the comments are, that what we can do. There's a possibility that maybe we can do some underground detention on the bottom here, which will allow us to put fill over that, so it's not as big as a hole as what you see.
Excuse me, go ahead. On that lot 6012 then, how long is the driveway?
It's about 400 feet long.
Wow.
Who's going to put in the telephone poles getting up there? Is it, I mean,
The power would be underground going out to it, just like it is in any other public street. And what I you know, it may not be someplace that you would want to live, and doesn't mean I want to live there, but this particular house has nobody around it. So that is a value to this lot, even though there's a detriment for, you're not going to shovel your driveway, you're going to have it plowed. But someone has to make a choice about being out here and being remote and away versus having a long driveway to do.
Nick, can I ask you a question? Current fire department regs, what are they talking about lengths of driveways?
I don't know if they limit the length of driveways, but once you get over a certain length, then you have to meet width requirements. Off the top of my head, I don't know.
I don't know what the numbers are, but I mean, my driveway is like
Long.
1,800 feet, something like that. And the requirements were on slope and width. They didn't care about the length, and also that they
The
could turn
width
the
and
truck
the turnaround and,
at the
yeah.
end.
But I would imagine that the engineering department, DPW, through their reviews would make sure that they meet all of those requirements.
Yeah, because, well, I'm looking at it now, and it's kind of snaky, and those turns look a little tight.
But
I'm talking snorkel truck that has trouble getting around the corner?
Would that be a DPW, though, question
Fire
to
department.
address?
Fire department.
Fire department
Fire
reviews this
department
too,
will
and they
review
will
it,
have to
so-
meet the
They will.
Right, but
NFPA
it's-
guidelines.
Right.
So sometimes I
Starts
wonder
at
whether
200 feet.
it's worth it to put in iffy lots.
I think he's getting that idea,
Well,
that
It was
the
204.
fire department will come in at the time you go to get a driveway permit. If you don't meet the requirements, you don't get the driveway permit.
So I think what we need to do is, and that's it, come back to what conservation should be concerned about and take a look at this plan. And are there any concerns?
Where are the septic tanks for lot 11 and 12?
Those were just worked on today, so they haven't been shown, but the system for lot number 10 will be in the front of the house, because we have a well location to the rear, and lot number 10 is a test bed out behind there, so that would probably be into the rear of the house.
I think he's saying
12
it's actually
would be
12.
in-
I think it's 12 he's
would be to the
talking
rear of the
about.
house.
And 11?
11 would be to the front of the house where the test bed is. There's a test bed 10 that was there. We just did not draw in the box and the septic.
Well,
Eric, one more thing. If that detention pond is kept down there in the cul-de-sac, I would just like to make a comment, it'd be great if some minimal landscaping was done. They put one near my house, and it was between two houses, and they just put it in there. Ugly as sin, it's along the
that's what I'm
road.
saying. It's
Ugly,
just-
ugly, ugly. It would've been nice if, even if the developer put in a row of little rhododendrons along it, it would've been nice. And one of them's like, if the kid wanted to jump out the bedroom window, he could just slide down there in the wintertime, it's that close. So if that is the route that you decide to go, the planning board agrees with, it'd be great if especially right along the cul-de-sac as they're coming around, and you are gonna see it, and that is the route that you're gonna end up with, if some landscaping beautification would be there, so it would just make a little nice, especially if you're coming around, down the hill.
We would do that. Our expectations were not that we were going to leave all that as mobile slopes based on grass that would have to be mowed and maintained. We had planned to put conservation mix with wildflower mix and other things in there. If that shows that that is not the proper maintenance for the slopes, that they have to be mowed, we would at least have a berm or something that's landscaped up through here, so
That would
that
be
you would not
great.
have an immediate impact by looking. And concerns over the pond, Keith doesn't like seeing it there either, because every time he goes to show a house, someone's gonna see it there. But the practical thing is that the option of putting here or putting it there, we, at one point in time,
Yes.
before this wetland, we had it out in through here.
Yes, I remember that.
But now it's for the remote from everywhere, so it's,
Okay.
I'd frankly get rid of lot 11 and move the detention pond off of 10 and have two nice, viable homes and a detention pond that's on its own lot.
I don't like that suggestion. Could be
No, but I mean, I just think for a neighborhood perspective down the way, you're asking for trouble. And it's gonna come back to the town. I mean, it's a Pinardville situation.
Actually, I'm thinking of Summer Street, where they have the drainage behind, and that has just become, do you know what I'm talking about? And that has been filled over the years, and we've had so much problems with water for the, the people that are on, it's just been a chronic problem. They finally, I think DPW has gotten back there and had to do a lot of drainage work with it. But anyway, well, all right, do we have any more comments? These are comments that are probably going on to the planning board, our concerns, that's part of our minutes and stuff, yep.
And I believe you're gonna come back in again because of the function and analysis, you're still waiting for that. So he'll be back before you, but, yeah, they're gonna be on September 9th, so any comments you'd like to go back?
I guess my comment would be, I understand the concept, it just seems like a lot of grading and a lot of, asphalt and, so it would be nice if beautification could be considered in this project. Anything else? And then I think, but that would take that corner in there, because that really is not particularly attractive. Anything else?
Yeah, there is one other thing. So from the beginning, because of the size of the open space area, it's a much larger open space area than we usually see with this project, mainly because there's so many wetlands and all that has made it so huge. But it's an opportunity to open that space up to the public rather than it just being in a homeowners association. And we also, because of the size of it and the importance of it, we wanted it to be properly protected by a land trust such as PLC. And so the main issue is land trusts, they don't want to enter into agreement with the homeowners association or that sort of thing. And also for opening it up for public access or public recreation, being held by a homeowners association is not a good thing. So what we would like to see happen, and this has been breached at the planning board, but I think we're going to have to probably meet the selectmen's meeting to discuss this, would be the open space area the fee simple be deeded to the town with the conservation easement held by the PLC. And it would be provided as an open recreation area. That's why they were talking about the 2 parking spaces there. There's an existing trail network out there. It's an informal trail network. It's not like it's mapped or labeled or anything like that, but there's one there that local people have put in, and it really is a very beautiful area, particularly when you get back into the Cordas property where it wasn't logged, which is the bulk of the open space area. There's also a lot of potential for that to be, if abutting lands could end up in conservation. There's quite an opportunity for an extensive trail system.
So
it would just be passive recreation, but I think that would be a real asset for the town, because one thing that has come up again and again, and you'll see it in the last master plan and you'll see it in the 1997 master plan, is the comment that there are no public open recreation areas in that part of the town. In that corner, I mean, you can go to the opposite side, so this isn't going to be a public park or playgrounds or anything that would be an expense for the town to maintain, but it would be a way to provide at least something for the people in that part of the town. And by PLC holding the easement, then they would also be the ones doing the stewardship and maintenance.
So
it's a win for the town.
It would be a win for the town, because you would open this up for the public
without
placing a burden on the town for maintenance and stewardship.
So that's something we want to put in our recommendation to the planning board, that we would like to see the open space being deeded
to. We would like to make that recommendation, and in fact this did come up at a previous planning board meeting, and the planning board members all seem very receptive to it. But it isn't the planning board that accepts
The selectmen.
Be Simple, it's the selectmen, so I think we need to
So you arrange to
But I do think,
come to the board with that?
well, I would be happy to come and discuss it.
but David, I
We'll
think
get
it would
probably
have to
with the-
actually be a recommendation, say, from the Conservation and the Planning Board. So if you have a strong recommendation,
Oh, yeah,
then-
no, I completely agree, but I say I think we also have to attend the selectmen's meeting and
so is this
explain
something
this
that
to
you've
them. We only got
entertained?
one of 5 here, so.
Have you already talked with the developer about this?
Yes.
Okay, so you're all set.
Well, and the
I
other
mean, you
critical thing
understand.
was, it's, it's easy to make the recommendation, but what about PLC? So we've met with them,
Okay,
and, it has to go through it has to be approved by their board as well, but it has gone before the Land Protection Committee at PLC previously,
okay.
and they were favorable towards it. I actually went over to PLC yesterday morning, and Mr. Martell also attended, so that we could present it again to Paula, the director, and show her what has changed since the initial views, the initial site walk they did, what the current proposal is, and she was also very positive about it. It's going to be discussed at the next Land Protection Committee meeting at PLC. But again, they've been very positive in the past, and since they've looked at it, the plan from their perspective has only improved.
Okay.
David and I have walked this with the developer twice now, and it is a beautiful piece of land, and I think it's in the minutes, it is really, really beautiful. It'd be a beautiful piece of land to preserve for the town.
I guess, and my only comment would be if it's so beautiful that,
Why do we have houses?
well, no, I understand this, and actually, my daughter lives in a very nice little neighborhood, and these are wonderful for little families. They are wonderful, but I would, I think, stress that, because there is so much grading, that you consider doing landscaping be a nice part of this program, because you do want it to be a pretty little neighborhood that will be attached to this lovely land. Okay, any other questions or any other suggestions?
I just want to go back to Karen's comment about Lot 11. Do you want me to state that you have concerns with Lot 11 being a viable lot for a home, or no?
All right, you asked that.
Because that
I
she had
think
said
this is an
before.
area that we are concerned with, and I think you understand with it in terms of maybe aesthetics or how it's being used, or I think that the planning board should be looking at that. That was our big.
Just concerned with Lot 11.
Well, I think we're looking at the detention pond, and we're
It is
talking
10, 11,
about
12.
10,
The
yeah,
detention pond and the
10,
relationship.
11, 12, that
to
whole area.
that area.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like you've already looked at that several times, and I'm sorry, but we're just looking at it again,
And you'll provide further comments when you receive the function and analysis
of this.
Function and values.
Of the.
function and values. Because they're coming back, you haven't received that yet.
So we would like to be able to come back in at your next meeting, whenever that is, whether it's 2 weeks or a month.
Month.
Fourth Wednesday
Well-
in September, whenever that is.
Right. Are these the final plans? These are not your final plans.
This is really an exhibit for you. The
Okay.
final plans and the plan set is what was submitted to the board.
Okay,
But we have tweaked the pond at the end here. So
right.
And we still have to get that information back to Public Works for the review for the meeting on the 14th, I think, or 11th.
For
Planning
your,
board meeting?
the planning board is the 9th. Oh, you're on the 9th. September 9th.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the one you need.
All right.
These
Want this one?
but I can get them after we're done. You can leave them there, I'll just get them after.
Oh, I didn't write on, all right, these, this one we can.
That you can write on. That's
Yes,
yours.
I did, all right. All right, I think we can zip right along. Let's have a report on finance.
Mr. Shower, did you want these back?
Mr. Shower? Do you want your plans
Did you want
back?
these copies back? I don't know if you wanted to use them at planning again.
Oh, we give them planning?
Oh, Lord, I don't know.
That's all right, keep it.
Yeah, you
I
can.
am.
All right.
They said we
I
could
didn't know if you
keep it.
needed to use them again.
This is the, no, the rest of it.
What's this?
That's the correspondence.
Okay, all right.
I just pulled it out.
Thank you very much. Okay. Kim, do you have a report on the finance for us?
I certainly
Oh,
do.
great.
With only an interest change of $10.79, our current use fund is $254,168.17. Our balance right now, our working balance right now is $2,916.19. Our budget is yearly budget is at $3,497. We were asked to discuss at this point, would we like to remain at this budget for next year?
What is our budget for the,
Whole year is,
oh, I don't have that written in mine. Okay, so
It's
the
the
whole
one that was
year,
passed out tonight,
Okay,
not what
yeah.
was mailed.
30, what's about, basically 3,500.
and we're in August,
I
and
know, and I'm looking at
we
that.
haven't used very much of our budget at all.
No, we haven't.
So we've been asked to see do we want to change it, or maybe even think about it over, when do they need a decision by?
She said she's working in September, but
Yes.
It's kind of hard to comment on it without the detailed budget
Right.
in front of us. Because
We never know what happens with our dues.
The dam.
the dam is now part of
We don't do the-
DPW.
Yeah, we
Oh,
don't.
That's
good.
right.
Yeah.
That-
Belonging to the Conservation Commission.
Oh,
so
the yeah,
the state
those
association.
have gone up, but not this much, I think. We're looking.
Yeah, that's it.
think we
Karen's
need to-
narrowing in on exactly the problem without the detailed budget.
Right.
You can say, okay, we spend X amount a month for minutes
See
and
if we
stuff
can
like
cut
that.
But in November, we get a bunch of things.
Right.
Yeah, we don't know what all the items are and how many of them have yet been paid for the year.
Yeah, and I don't have that information to
Get
share.
a good comparison of what you did last year.
Pardon?
You want the comparison too of last year's, what came in at the end of the year?
Yeah, I
Well-
know we reduced it from last year. 'Cause
It
we-
did get
we-
reduced.
We submitted a smaller budget.
Right.
But
So I think
I
that-
don't know what's going to happen with our obligations.
Exactly, we need to know what they are for the rest of the year
Yeah.
before
Right.
we can,
Trim this down.
make a decision on what we
Right.
can do.
Yeah.
We
Which
can't
I-
work with no data.
Yeah, I think probably the consensus is that if we are, that we've always been a very frugal commission, and we're not gonna be asking for tons of money, that if we find that, because we don't know what some of our expenses are, like belonging to the State Conservation Commission and those dues have gone up a lot, but, so I guess we're gonna wait until,
To the next meeting
yeah, to find out, right,
and get the detail.
right, yes.
I need to ask a question. What is our current rate of interest?
There's the statement right there from the bank.
Right here, let me give that to you.
Let me see. This is the first time I'm looking at this.
Yeah.
Balance, 10.8, well, transaction, all it has is 730 transaction details. That's the money we made on interest. Annual percentage.
Here it is.
Right there,
Oh, yeah.
0.05%.
But you know what? You can't get anything anywhere.
But if half of this would go in a money market for 6 months, I really think that the bank has our money. And somehow we should shop it to get a little better rate, because we could do jumbo. We could do sweep accounts with that amount of money. And in effect, 0.05 is ridiculous. I'm getting more on my little St. Mary's account. And this is, I think it's Citizens.
Yes.
So I really would like to ask the finance committee, or the finance person, to shop it, because it's a big enough amount. I mean, it's not like our $2,000 our operating budget, which we use all the time. But I mean, if it was in a revolving money
I don't
market
think
or
you're
something
getting
that
much
we
on
could
this.
access, we'd get a better rate.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, exactly what we're trying to do here is build this up
Build.
through accretion over time, so it's big enough to actually do projects,
So,
and that just gets us there that much sooner.
so is this, we have, this fund, is this controlled by the financial department here in town? Are they the ones that are
Yes.
overseeing this?
Yes.
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 Okay, so then we could ask this person to
The
look in,
finance director.
right, to look into,
What are other different, I mean, is there another group in town that we can compare ourselves to? Are they doing the same kind of thing through the bank like this, or do they do other things?
I have no idea.
It-
I don't know if anyone else does that.
Okay.
yeah, I don't,
This is a fund, I mean, this is a chunk of money that we need to access
you may need to ask it, yeah.
infrequently. So if you were in a money market, you can write a check against a money market. You don't need to keep it in a
And we-
checking account that doesn't give you any interest.
Right.
And if it is accumulated in the town's general fund checking and just zeroed out, but I think it's our own account, isn't it? Judging from,
This is our operating, this is our,
it's a separate
It's a-
fund.
It
it's a
should be a
separate, this
separate
is
fund.
our current use.
Then it should go into a money market and this is, I think, a jumbo. And I think it ought to be managed better.
And that also works very well because any conservation project that we do, there's no way it's gonna happen in less than 6 months. And more typically, they've taken at least a year. So we have plenty of lead time when we know we're working on a project. We know, whether it's a CD or money market, we have plenty of leeway to be able to reach the maturity and get it out.
Okay, so,
I mean, it's been bothering me that we get $10 and I get
Same
more
here.
on my little
Right,
check,
I agree.
savings account.
so,
absolutely.
Patty, are you able to get us the spreadsheet so we can see what our expenses are? And
Yep.
should I talk to Janice, or do you want to talk to her about if there are any other alternatives that we are able to put our money in it and to make it more profitable?
I can talk to her, but if you prefer that you want to talk to her directly, just,
Okay.
I think actually it would be nice if Kim did, just,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. I think Patty's got a lot of responsibility, and that's somehow is, I think,
That's fine with me.
yeah, you do a great job. So Patty does too, but she does a great job on, so. Okay, all right.
works.
I'll have some info at the next meeting.
All right, conservation minutes, just, I'll set that aside. Shoreland impact permit, and this is, a Tourneau on Emerald Circle, the Piscataqua watershed, let's see. All right, the impact right there, let's see, what are they asking for? Permit description, impact 1,300, am I supposed to go through all this?
Well, aren't those new plans that were submitted?
It's just, I think
This
it was
is
a
the
permit.
correspondence.
These are all correspondence.
Okay.
Usually we look at those,
Those.
the ones that are from the DES to see if
She
there's
just
any.
quickly reviews
Okay.
them. There was a question asked of me if we had seen a couple of them. You don't see the actual applications like you do for a dredge and fill. You'll get a notice that they've received, and then you'll see the permit once they've issued. It's not that, so the second one shows you the process of, they don't give you a copy of the actual application, so.
So, all right, this one is impacting about 1,300 square feet for the construction of a 620 square foot addition and conversion of 192 square feet deck into living space.
Yep.
All right, and then it notes the conditions. And that's all you need to know? All right. Let's see, according to, and that's, wetland, let's see, what is this? All right, these are guidelines for the municipal court. All right, let's see, here's another one, Surratt Bog Road. And this is impacting 400 square feet for the construction of a level surface to install a soft pool. Okay. Is that part of this? All right. Here's Garlic, but that is that over here? This is just another received,
Sure, it's a shoreline application on Garlic.
yeah, but,
Where's Garlic?
It's on Trestle Lane. That's his name.
That's his
Oh,
name.
I'm sorry. Where's Trestle Lane?
so they're acknowledging the receipt of the
Behind Shaw's.
application.
Okay.
That's
State-
all that is.
No
Yeah.
variance or redevelopment waiver is required and therefore will be reviewed within 30 days. So they haven't done anything for that.
Yeah.
All right, here's the town of Goffstown. Based on review, application in accordance, let's see, permit, non-site specific permit, the permit shall not be considered valid unless signed, all right, what am I doing? Impact 750 square feet of stream and associated wetlands for the installation of a 5-foot by 25-foot long polymer coated corrugated steel pipe embedded,
Oh.
what?
No, I'm reading past you
Oh.
I'm
with
sorry.
One, all right.
for that, sorry.
All right, the crossing is being used to replace a previous crossing washed out for a section of the Goffstown Rail Trail.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here is a minimum impact expedited application for the Tom Lally. And this is to install a culvert and construct a driveway to access to 2 suitable building areas on the property. The impact contains 350 square feet. The culvert proposed is 24-inch diameter and 30-inch in length. This project is in lieu of previously approved project. So that one's already been approved, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
But that's the application. Do you have to sign that? Do we have to approve it and sign it?
Okay, thank you. I guess we do.
They didn't, usually they submit all of them to me. If that actually got from, well, it came from the town clerk, but it wasn't like they came in, you know, usually you sign all of them.
Right.
5 copies. isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't get 5 copies.
So you just got one copy. And it has here, received by the town clerk August 12th. And it has Kimberly Peace's name, no, that's May 20th.
So it has her on it?
So this must be that
This was
it's
one that
already
already
been
went,
accepted,
okay.
yeah. All right,
But didn't they change it?
No, that's the one that actually got
It
mailed.
just says, yeah, received and everything.
yeah, it's already been
Yeah.
approved and it's received. It's all done. And, let's see, so did we have other? All right, this is, find 2 checks, oh. Now this is from the finance department. And this is attached, please find 2 checks, one in the amount of $8,000, the other in the amount of $18,407.41. As part of the approval for the above referenced open space subdivision, the owner was required to pay their fair share of improvements to the Wallace Mass Road roundabout. All right, so does this go to us, really?
The 8,000 does.
Is that right? Okay.
The 8,000 was like a penalty, a fine because of all the tree
The
cutting.
tree
The Wortley
cutting.
Hill thing that was a big, and that was the resolution of it, was that they were going to take some corrective actions, among them depositing the $8,000 into the Capital Reserve Conservation Fund.
Conservation Commission's Open Space Capital Reserve Fund. All right.
We're just letting you know that came in.
That happened.
And added.
Well, that's good. All right.
Okay, that was added then after the last statement. Okay.
Correct. So that I should see in the next statement I get, that 8,000, which I'll know.
That's the Capital Reserve Fund, not the Land
That-
Use Change Tax Fund.
Right, so that's a different fund.
Yes.
Oh, where will that show up?
Well, you'd have to get the statement for the other one.
talk to David.
So we'll get the statement for the other one.
All right.
Which, by the way, could also be invested in a better account.
So wait, what is this?
That could also be invested in a better account.
Yes, right. Giant Pumpkin Weigh-In and Regatta is planned for October 16th and 17th. So actually, the question was, were we going to be, this year they will be conducting a lottery system to determine which organizations will be joining the regatta. Are we interested in doing that? Or are we also, are we interested in having a booth at this? Now, is there a discussion on that?
It's too late for the pumpkin.
Too late for the pumpkin.
Why is it, no,
Today, you had to, you had to have put your name in, the lottery, everything had to be done by today, so to be picked, so. But I guess the second part is, are we interested in doing a booth, at least one day, putting ourselves out there? We have a banner now, we have a canopy now,
Wow.
you know,
Do we have volunteers, and do we want to put out a booth?
and that's the question to bring to discussion. And it'd be good if we had a bunch of people, not at the same time, but then not all one person will be stuck for the whole day. I think it'd be great to get our name out there, and if we could each commit part of some time, I think it'd be good, instead of having maybe one person being stuck all day or not able to do it, so. Throwing that out there.
Huh?
I'm gone.
All right. October 16th and 17th. Does that sound, can I have a response from anybody as to what they think?
Commitments that weekend.
I think it's important, I will volunteer some time for that.
So, well, the question is, are we going to have a booth first?
We gotta have a booth, if we have a booth, I will volunteer some time for that.
Do we have anybody else suggesting? Now, is the open space, or are they going to have anything? A different committee?
FOGLC might do one, but I'm not volunteering this year because I've done both days every
In the
year for
past.
And that's what
Okay.
I
happens.
don't know how many years now.
Right, right. Well, I guess what I'm going to ask is then, in putting this booth together, I think you'll want to have it, I don't think you want to have it repetitious. Do you have any idea of what you want to do on the booth?
No, I think the first thing is, are we gonna even bother?
Planning.
If we're gonna bother, then plenty of time to come up with something. But if there's not much interest, there's not enough interest
Oh,
right now.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I could help you out, and so maybe we have a committee of two.
And I know Kim, of course, would
Okay.
be there too, so,
All right?
so we will have a booth.
Yes.
It's the same time of my regatta every year, so I can't. My hands are tied. I have to work that.
We might get after you to do a little planning with us beforehand, though.
I could help with that.
There you go. Okay. All right. So,
Kim, did she try talking to Robbie? I sent it to Kim when I got the email,
I just,
she knew.
yeah, and I spoke to her, she's under the weather, so when I spoken to her, she said that, was not able to get the paperwork in time, and chose just not right now with
that's
busyness
right.
It was a
not to do
short
it.
notice, it was like,
Yeah.
we gotta, just like Friday or something. It's
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Well, but do we need
she
to
knew,
tell
so did
Robbie
good.
that we're going to have an exhibit there or a booth?
Probably,
Okay.
because what they do is they see how many people,
Okay.
and then they space you out.
All right. Why don't you?
Do you want me to take that?
Yes.
Give that to me.
Oh, no, but are you going to be the one to notify
I
Robbie?
will take care of it.
All right.
It is done.
Okay, all right. Okay? Okay, this is a recent discovery of Asian longhorn beetle and exotic pest natives to China and Korea have been found on 6 trees in Boston, adds to the urgency to efforts to prevent the spread of this. And do you want me to go ahead and read all of this, or should I just put this out here so that you can look at this?
Can I see that?
There you go.
We've been having sessions around the state.
Aha. To show you, is this beetle that
It's
has
black and
Yeah.
spotted.
and
yeah.
spotted, right,
That would be a good idea for the
for the booth? That would be a very good idea.
The-
pictures and things.
I mean, I think that's what I was trying to say, yeah, I think that would be a
That'd be
wonderful.
great.
I'm sure they have posters or things.
Oh,
that you
yeah,
could
they're
do.
going,
Right.
going around all over. I think the last
Yeah.
one was in Nashua.
And I
The
think we should
Japanese
also,
knotweed.
oh my God, the Japanese knotweed is
I
not
know.
good. But I think we should also have invasive plants and
Yeah.
down there, just
If
to
anybody
be-
needs a poster,
think
I
that's
have one.
Oh, good, there you go.
Any,
Our
any
committee's getting
contribution-
bigger and bigger.
I love this,
Yeah.
okay. No, bring
I
it in,
think-
the more information that you have out there for the people is better, because they'll understand it better. And if there's pictures, they'll recognize it, oh yeah, I saw that on a poster.
I think actually we'll contact the State Conservation Commission because we ought to get something out of our dues. I bet they do have some information that we can use.
Or UNH.
UNH.
that sends a
UNH
letter,
is
maybe
another
doing
one,
it.
yes, that's a good one, okay.
Margaret Hagan's been doing it on the,
On TV?
on TV.
Oh, okay, then
So,
we'll get a hold of
I
her
would say
too.
UNH would have,
UNH,
I think she's been going around. So
yeah, and
the-
she's great.
If we do the booth on invasive plants in,
Yeah.
local, how about local, or local, you know.
Pests.
Invasive species.
Well, I could
Invasive, yeah.
give you a poster of a few pests.
Necessarily
People are not allowed.
Who said people? I said pests.
Right, yes.
So here, this is from the Namasac, is that it? The lake? Would like to thank the selectmen and the town of Goffstown supporting our efforts to rid the lake of milfoil.
Another one,
Thanks
milfoil.
to the town's contribution, the lake, yes, that's another one to add in there too. The lake was
Especially when it was on
treated,
our ballot.
the lake was treated on June 23rd with very good results. The first time in recent years, the infestation that had taken over the lake is virtually gone. Kayakers, swimmers, rafters, boaters, blah, 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 have seen a dramatic change. Do we have access, is there a public access to that lake? I thought they did say there was, though, was there?
Yes.
It's small though, isn't it?
We would like to take this opportunity to recommend a change in the charter of the Goffstown Conservation Commission. We understand from the meeting with them that they do not have the ability to authorize funds to help support conserving our natural public resources such as this lake from a maintenance point of view, but only in the form of land purchases. We also understand that other communities in our state have set up commissions without these restrictions. We feel that Goffstown would be better served with such a structure. While we do not anticipate the need for future funding from the town in the event that we or any other group requests this, it would be nice for the Conservation Commission to be able to do this. I think that's something that could be brought up at another meeting if you want to discuss it, because that would actually have to be a change to
Well,
our,
that's, first of all, the statement is not
True.
terribly accurate. It's talking about Conservation Commission charters, which, this has nothing to do with Conservation Commission charters. The funds that were set up exclusively and specifically for land conservation efforts under state RSAs
Yeah,
and
right.
guidelines. We didn't just pull this out of the air. We didn't just make this up. We are working off what the state provides, the guidelines of the state. It's an effective and an efficient program. It's not designed to fund every possible thing you could fund, or you would accomplish absolutely nothing. There's a reason that it was done that way.
and actually, when you think about it, I think going to the voters and asking them if they want to put money into a project is a good idea, because there's, as you said, there will be, I'm sure the selectmen see this too, lots and lots of projects that you could fund, that you could put money towards, but then there's a finite number of things, and some of this should be up to the voter whether they want to fund it.
But not from the funds that were specifically set up.
That's what I'm saying, you're right, not from those
Confuse the
funds.
issue.
Let them put it on the ballot and ask the voter if they want to.
Which is what we said when
Right.
they first came to us, and lo and behold, it works
Should
just
we,
fine.
would you like to send that response back to this letter?
No.
I don't
Just
think it
to
needs a
leave it at,
response.
okay, fine, okay.
Next one's just information.
Okay, please accept this free copy of amending or terminating conservation easements, and this is from the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. So that actually should go to our open space people.
Yep. David.
Can I pass that?
Sure can.
12 you've already done, that's the one for Brian Fournier.
Pardon me?
So you skip that one.
All right, a wetland complaint from the Fournier family.
That's the one we just did.
We just did that, all right. And La Roche is this is a 75 square foot for the impact for the construction of a 5 by 15 foot addition. And that is a shoreline land impact permit. And here is protection and preservation of wares. Well, this is the PLC. This is the Piscataquag PLC newsletter. So that's here if anybody wants to look at it. And this is from
Those are your
Megan.
plans, new application before planning, a demolition business.
This is a new application?
Yep, it's gonna come in.
Are we supposed to deal with that right now?
Yeah, you may want to. I mean, it's going on September 9th for completeness, and it's open that they could have their hearing that night, too.
So this is a demolition business site
Oh, I know
plan
what that is.
on East Dunbarton Road. And
What's the number on this Dunbarton Road? Did they give it?
well, let's see, 110 East Dunbarton Road.
Should we say,
Walton and Donna Smith Walton. And, demolition, business addition. All right, so what they're doing, it looks like they have an existing house here and they're adding an addition here, a residential addition onto this part and a little business addition onto this part. Maybe it's the office. Is that what they're?
Yeah, it's going to become the addition for the residential part is going to become a two-family, and then they're also having the addition for the business.
Okay, and is there anything else that they're putting in? I do see a stockpile right
This-
over here, or what is?
They have a lot of vehicles, too, that they,
they run it like a demolition, and so if you drive by, they have bricks they're selling, or they're along the street, whatever from job, you'll go by and there'll maybe construction from a demolition, but products still may be good, you'll see them sell them, I see bricks a lot of times, right along the street as you're driving by. And they have, the business is right there.
Okay, so this is coming before the planning board, but it is,
and they went to ZBA, they had to get a variance, too.
okay.
Part of their approvals, they had to get site plan
And is there
approval.
any wetlands there?
That's what they submitted for a plan. I don't know, do you guys want to view it, this property at all?
Did you want to site walk it? Or I don't even see any wetland. Well, the Black Brook is right back here. Floodplain hazard line is right here. So obviously, they have a floodplain that comes up into here, but that's as far as it goes. Well, would you like to site walk it? Anybody? Anybody close to this area?
Well, I'm very close, but is that something we should site walk? Because here is, I mean, I don't have a problem going at all, looking at it before that time period.
Well, I
Do you
think
want them to come in? Want me to ask them if they could come in? I mean, to you.
Yes.
Sure.
And we can site walk it beforehand, and we could do that. I mean, it's really straightforward.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it's
I'll
probably
go
gonna
with
be
you.
a 30-minute thing.
I'll go with you, probably not that way.
No, it'd be easy
Okay.
to do.
But yes, would you have them come in at our next meeting,
Okay.
and we can do a quick site walk?
Yeah.
But actually, please review the enclosed plans and submit your comments. So we will take a quick look at it.
Okay. Whenever. It's even, because it's still light out, we can even do it in an afternoon.
Right?
I mean, like I said, we could be done with this in an hour. It's really straightforward to walk, because it's just a yard, so it's not
Right,
like
right.
climbing or anything.
Right. I'll
Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think that is everything in correspondence. Yeah?
Yep, that's
All right. Any other business?
Yeah,
Open space?
I was contacted by a couple of people regarding the timber cutting that's being done on the South Mountain area and the water precinct
water
land,
precinct?
which of course is, the jurisdiction of the water precinct. But people were concerned because, Yeah, there've been cuts in the precinct land before, and they were, actually pretty well done. The ones on North Mountain were very well done, for example. The ones they did recently have been areas which are pretty severely cut. In fact, even some almost clear-cut areas. This is down, where the reservoirs are, coming downstream from that area. So the cuts in there were pretty severe. And the individuals were concerned because they said it looks like the trees are flagged now higher up the slope, getting into some of the areas where some of the recreation trails are. And so it seems like a little bit of a, we have this whole move going on to open up the trail system in the mountains, which Economic Development Council has been behind, mapping the trails and so on. But they thought there's a possibility that the trails in that area could be obliterated if they were to cut as heavily as they did in some of those other areas. So the question was, who knows what about this? What are the plans? I know we see timber cut notices in our correspondence coming by, but all they really say is, X number of board feet of oak, X number of board feet of this and that. So we don't really know. I recommended that they go directly to the Water Precinct Board and discuss it with them, but also promised that I would bring it up at this meeting to see if there's any other information we can get on this.
I don't know, in the past, we used to have somebody that sat on the commission and that they would kind of oversee, but we don't have anybody that sits on the commission here that does, and does the selectmen do anything?
We just see the same permit, which lays out how much wood is being cut, and usually there's a map of the lot outlined. Show us what lot they're cutting on, but that's typically it.
What about sending a letter to the Water Precinct stating you have concerns with the impact of the timber cutting to the trails? And just send a letter?
Yeah, I haven't
They may not be aware that they're...
I haven't been out there myself to see it and see what's flagged and all that. It would be a little, it would be good to actually understand it a little better.
Well,
but my first question is, does anybody in this committee know about it, or do we have the papers from previous correspondence, or?
Do we have any minutes from the Water Precinct?
no.
I think it just came through as a timber cut, didn't it?
Yeah, it's a timber
I remember
cut
seeing it
copy.
came through. Usually you can tell your logger that, if you have a path, they'll keep it visually scenic.
Mm-hmm. I know they did very well with that, when they did the North Mountain, for example. They, the trails weren't impacted that much, and they did such a good job on that mountain anyway that it, within a few years it was.
And actually, there's another area that a number of years they and it did not impact the trails either. It was over closer to the pond, the Uncanunic pond.
Yeah.
That backside there, and the bigger problem was just that some people had used the trails to get in with their ATVs and run around, and that was a problem. It was very hard to police that, but it wasn't the logging.
Right, but I know what they were talking about because I'm familiar with the areas. They did it a little differently in that section. I think they went to some of the more remote areas down from the reservoir, and there were blocks that were almost virtually clear cut, and a patch here and there, so what? But if it starts getting up into the more recreational area, then that could have that could work counter to what some of the other groups and committees are trying to do to.
I think the best thing would be to go to the Water Precinct and talk to them first, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so, but also maybe to go out and see what's
going on.
is flagged and what's going on, because I don't want to try to get too specific when I don't know what I'm talking about. So that was the first question, was does anybody know what I'm talking about? Does anybody have any other information?
No. Oh, well, David, you're a committee of one.
I guess it's time to go for a hike.
Okay. Did you have any anything to say? Actually, you've told us that it sounds like you're dealing with several things on open space, and one of them has to do with this.
Well, the Open Space Committee didn't meet as a committee, but individual members have been having conversations with landowners.
Okay.
There's a few discussions going on. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Oh, so actually, when you brought that up today, then you're saying discussions are going on, but it really hasn't been formalized that you're going to be approaching the planning board and suggesting that this be the way it be handled.
Well, that's an open public project. Yeah, absolutely. We're going.
Okay, you're saying other things
we've already
you're
brought
dealing
that up,
with.
and we need to follow up and have a meeting with the selectmen to talk about the aspect of accepting the interest.
Okay.
With the easement by PLC. But no, I'm talking about the
other stuff.
We approach landowners and we talk about the possibilities. We tell them, what can be done, how it can be done. We give them the information. And those discussions can go on for a long, long time before someone decides, all right, I want to proceed and start putting together a project. When we get to that stage, then we bring it before everybody and say, this is a proposal. So that what I'm saying is that what are we doing? We're having those private conversations.
Okay. I see the last thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes for July.
Yes, I have read them.
Need to correct the date that I
The
found.
top.
Yeah.
Yep. And you picked that out right away.
Yeah, I did. That's wrong date.
Here, anywhere.
So they already posted.
Yep.
Okay, are there any other corrections to those minutes? Oh, I did with them. Oh, here they are. Oh, yeah. Any other corrections? All right, do I have a motion to accept?
I have a motion to accept. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Nope, then that's it. All right, so our next meeting is September, the fourth week in September, is that correct?
Yep.
And we have one site walk out of this and a planning and a pumpkin planning committee.
Yes.
And David's going to take care of looking at the logging. Anything else?
Should we schedule a selectmen's meeting?
Yes.
Selectmen's meeting.
An appearance at the selectmen's meeting just to talk about the upcoming
open space.
Blackbriar open space.
Yes.
Can we do that now?
Sure.
Well, we can't set the date right now.
No, but I can let
beginning.
Sue know that you'd like to be put on an upcoming agenda.
Okay.
I mean, they're coming back for September 9th, and it's still going to be going on from this project's to me, it's still starting because they just accepted the yield plan.
Right. No, it's definitely going to be going for a while.
So, okay,
so
get
emergency
put on the
or
agenda.
anything, whenever's convenient in the near future.
Okay.
Like if it's a month from now or whatever,
I had one other thought. So here we are asking Kim to go talk to the finance person about how better to invest this money so that we could get something out of it. But we haven't given her any authority to actually do something. Are we going to wait until the next meeting?
What I was going to do with Janice, since I don't have any authority for it, is just get information. Is that something that she's able to do? Is that something, okay, these are our options through the town, and then come back to here and say, this is what I was told we can do, how does the feel about it?
Okay.
And then you'll go, Kim, God, you do an awesome job. I'll take that information back and call it a day.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.